commonly submitted questions. But first, I have some exciting updates to share. As you know, in the Ultimate Human VIP community, my community manager is constantly asking you guys, like, how can we improve and add value to your community? And one of the suggestions was, how about we get discounts on either products or services that we're using or that Gary's recommending that don't go to other people. In other words, it's just not available on Instagram or it's not available on the website for some of these. So I want to talk about some incredible new perks for you guys. You can use them if you want. Don't use them if you don't want. But if you hear me talking about any product or service, especially one that the Ultimate Human is partnered with, which means that I use it every day in my daily life, I've gone and negotiated discounts for you guys. So hopefully you haven't bought them yet. So these include 20% off of A Game, which is not an energy drink. It's a hydration drink. I'm a huge fan of it. It was founded by Johnny Damon, one of the most famous baseball players of all time. I get approached constantly by energy drinks and all kinds of hydration drinks. And I look at their ingredients and I see the cyanocobalamin form of B12, or I see the folic acid contents in there, or they say all natural flavors, but then they don't tell me how they naturally flavor it. And we turn these down all the time. A Game was a game changer for me. I love the fact that it's safe for kids. I really don't recommend these drinks to kids other than A Game right now, or like a Poppy. But so you'll get 20% off of A Game, which is my ultimate hydration drink, 20% off of the Aeon vests. You might have seen me wearing these weighted vests a lot lately. It's actually pretty cool because I'm wearing 10 pounds right now. Women would probably wear 5 or 6 pounds, but it will burn up to an extra 600 calories a day just wearing this vest. And I get a lot of compliments on the vest, and people don't even realize that it's weighted. And then when I work out, as you know, I do a lot of rucking, and I was using a Rogue ruck, which has like these iron plates you put in the front and iron plates you put in the back, but it has straps that go over your shoulders. And after about 20 minutes, it will really bother you. It really starts to hurt your shoulders, and it just drags down on your spine. But Aeon, pronounced Ion, they developed these vests that have these weights in pockets that are centered right around your abdomen, on your flanks, up and down your spine, the same way that you would actually disperse weight if you were to gain weight. And you can go up to 20 pounds for men. You can go to 7, 8, 9 pounds for women. If you're going to walk, you might as well burn extra calories while you walk. So you're going to get discounts on those. I negotiated another $200 off of all the Cold Life products. None of those discounts are available to anyone other than my VIP Ultimate Human community. So keep your suggestions coming. If you want to do more lives, if you want to see more from the private podcast, if you have topics that you'd like me to take deep dives on, I'd love to do that. I'm actually going to be very vulnerable and give my VIP community a real window into my family. And by that, I mean, we have the same challenges in our family that you probably have in your family. We have mold and mycotoxin poisoning. We have relatives with chronic viral infections. And so I've convinced them to allow me to share their testing with you. And then I'm going to take you on the 3-week, 6-week, 10-week journeys to fix mold poisoning, mycotoxins, Lyme, chronic viral, some of these. And I'm just going to publish this into the VIP Ultimate Human community. You can watch these if you want. Not, I'm going to sort of do it as a mini documentary series. I'm going to actually put the labs up there and show you the start date and say, my daughter, for example, Madison, is living in downtown Miami. We happen to be the mold capital of the world. We won the mold lottery here, and just hasn't been feeling very good for the last several months. Her mood's been way off. She started to feel a little bit depressed. If you know my daughter, Madison, she's never depressed. She started to feel depressed. She started getting frequent headaches, and then her energy got to the point where she just had crushing fatigue. And so I did a mold, mycotoxin, viral panel on her. I did a parasite panel on her, and lo and behold, her mold scores were off the charts. And mold is a really tricky one. And so I just started her on a detox program. I'm going to let you guys follow this journey over the next 10 weeks. I'm going to show you the labs. I'm going to tell you exactly what we're doing: glutathione, charcoal binders, regular activation of detox pathways like sweating in a dry sauna. and show you how we can remove these things from our body, because so many of you guys are struggling with these things, and number one, don't know that you have them, and number two, don't know where your symptoms are coming from because it's not showing up in regular blood work, and number three, don't have a solution to get out of it. And so I'm going to walk her out of it and document it, and I'll take you guys along for the journey. I think that's the best way to learn, and it also gives everybody hope that, hey, what if I have a chronic viral infection? What if I have mold or mycotoxin? What if I have Hashimoto's? What are the therapeutic interventions for that? How do we get rid of it? How do we calm our antibodies down? How can we walk our way out of Crohn's disease, or ulcerative colitis, or irritable bowel syndrome? All the stuff that nobody wants to talk about. So I really thought it would be cool to have my team do sort of a documentary style series with me showing you guys the labs, exactly what treatments we're doing. I'll take you into the clinics with me and show you, if we're doing ozone or EBO2, what kinds of treatments we're doing. I'll give you all that information so you can Google around in your area, maybe find a clinic that has some of those modalities if you or a loved one is facing those kinds of challenges. So many times we just accept these, I call them consequences of aging, and they're not consequences of aging at all. When we just accept that our mood is off, or that we feel depressed, we wake up feeling anxious, we're still struggling with anxiety, you've done the gene test, you're on the supplements, and this stuff still seems to kind of come and go. Maybe you're not having regular bowel movements, maybe you have excessive brain fog, maybe you or somebody you love is just experiencing crushing fatigue lately, and they sleep and don't seem to be well rested. So we're going to talk about, like, where do you start? First of all, what's the kind of testing that you do? Where do you get the testing? And then once those results come back, instead of being hopeless, how can we walk our way out of this naturally? How do we activate our own detoxification pathways? How do we identify what's wrong with us? And then ultimately, how long does it take to put it permanently in the rear of your mirror? That was another suggestion that came from the Rule Breakers. We now call you the Ultimate Human VIPs, from the Ultimate Human VIPs, our actual case studies. Somebody with mold, somebody with Lyme, somebody with mycotoxins, somebody with Crohn's or ulcerative colitis or irritable bowel syndrome. Take them from the condition that they're in, and over a 10-week period of time to completely putting that in their rearview mirror. I mean, it's exciting for me. I'm doing it in private anyway. I'm going to start getting permission to do it publicly. So if that's something that you like, let me know. I'm also, dude, my team will not let me tell you, and I'm so mad at them, but I'm working on a really, really, really big deal for you guys. It is actually going to blow you away for what you're getting for $97 a month. I've been working really hard on it for several months. So is my production team, and it's going to be out. I'm going to announce it probably on February 19th. So don't miss out on the morning challenge. The morning challenges, all these challenges are always free. I really want to build this community into hundreds of thousands of people. And the reason why is you're the most informed. First of all, I see you guys out there defending me on social media. Thank you so much. I've been attacked for being a part of the Maha movement. It has nothing to do with the political orientation of the party. It has to do with my interest in affecting public policy and really being able to make an impact, not just in stage talks and podcasts and interviews and lectures and through my social media, but a chance to really impact public policy. And so I hope that you guys recognize that is the intention. Get the corruption out of our food supply, the corruption out of our nutritional research, and get some of the poisonous toxins out of our food supply, like red dye 3 that was just banned, but red dye 40. I had a terrible personal journey recently, and my wife posted about it and got a lot of traction on social media. I have a very, very, very close personal friend, 35 years of mine, who is dying in the Mayo Clinic's oncology center in Scottsdale, Arizona. I only found out about 5 days ago. And this is somebody I've known for 35 years. I've known him longer than my children. My daughter's 26 years old. I got photographs of my friend holding my daughter in the delivery room when they still wrapped her as a little burrito. Remember that special wrap they do on newborns? I've got pictures of him next to my son, playing high school football. And unfortunately, he was diagnosed with late stage colon cancer, which has metastasized to his liver, to his lungs, and also to his lymph nodes. The prognosis through Mayo Clinic is very bleak. I have convinced the family that we should get him into something called a dendritic cell vaccine program, which is essentially where we turn the body's own immune system on the cancer by introducing dendritic cells, a special type of cell in the immune system, to the cancer, and having that cell activate, identify that cancer as a foreign antibody, and then go after the cancer. If you know anything about oncology, there are certain size tumors, 7.5 centimeters, 8 centimeters, 8.5 centimeters, that very often are inoperable and they don't respond to radiation and chemotherapy, not to mention the fact that that amount of chemotherapy and radiation would likely kill the host. So that is going to be a very powerful journey, because people are generally think that it's hopeless when they're diagnosed at that late stage. But I'm going to take you guys on that journey as well. I just want to be as vulnerable and as authentic as possible. And I really want to do these not in a way to scare you, but in a way to inspire you, so that if you or a loved one falls into any of these categories, you at least know what to do and where to go to get help. Rarely will it be a solution that I'm providing directly. I'm not licensed to practice medicine. I'm not a physician, but the people in my sphere are. I've had some of the most intelligent human beings on the planet sit right in that chair right there and give me hours and hours of their time. And these are oncologists, functional medicine specialists. These are some of the top PhDs, MDs, and thought leaders in the world. And if I'm doing these things behind the scenes, and I can get the client or patients or friends or family members' permission, I'm going to bring it to you guys in real time. So that is as authentic as we can be. You're going to start and go on and end the journey with these, and then we'll put these on the shelf so that other VIP Ultimate Humans can refer to them. So, all right, time to dive into some of your questions. But I just wanted to give you guys that update. I'm still working every month. I want to make it better for you guys. If you can help recruit people to the Ultimate Human VIPs, I promise you, I will make it worth their while. My only intention is to exceed your expectation of value. And that's what today is about. I also want to thank you, because last week while I was in Los Angeles, if you were following my stories, I took Ultimate Human VIP contributions. You guys paid, some of you still pay the old $47 a month. Most of you pay $97 a month. I took your money and gave it to the ASPCA in Los Angeles. We also went to the Palisades Animal Shelter and we gave them $10,000. We gave the ASPCA $10,000. I just felt like that was where the money would stretch the most. And these animals that were separated from their owners, dogs, cats, parakeets, horses, that just lost their homes and still have not been reoriented with their owners, were given food, blankets, medication, all kinds of things. So that's on you guys. You should be very proud of yourself, because your money last month went to these animal shelters and made a difference. So EMF related questions. EMF related. Okay, so Deborah Speck asks, ideas for healing EMF sensitivity and goiters. Yes. The EMF industry, in my opinion, is the wild, wild west. You got to be really, really cautious with a lot of these EMF devices. I have a $4,000 Tesla paperweight sitting in my living room right now that the company promised me dispersed all these EMFs. It's coils of copper wire, essentially a Tesla coil. It's a $4,000 piece of equipment. I had them send me one. I tested it. It didn't scatter any of the EMFs. What I have found to be the most effective is my wife and I, we sleep in an EMF tent, and it's easy. It's basically a PVC square, and it's got silver fabric over top of it. It looks like a mosquito tent. I actually love it now. So does she. Kind of makes you feel cozy in there. It's not expensive. The manufacturer eludes me right now, but I will put it in the show notes. That will give you 8 or 9 hours a day of complete EMF mitigation. Secondly, I would do all of the standard things. I would make sure that you do not have large equipment like refrigerators or washing machines or other 220 drawing equipment that draws 220 volts on the opposite side of the wall from the head of your bed. That's a really, really common one. People don't realize how strong those magnetic fields are, but they very often penetrate the wall. Kids' rooms that are against the kitchen wall, those kids will very often end up with autoimmune conditions. Yes, it's very real. If you want the science, I'm happy to give it to you. But to mitigate EMF in your home, right now, I've only found one scatter device that works. I will link that scatter device in the show notes below as well. It's not expensive. It's not as expensive as that damn $4,000 Tesla turd that I have sitting out in my living room. So I'll tell you the ones that work. There are also what is the one that I have on the back of my phone that I tested that works? I'm going to link that one as well. There are two of them. There's a flat square chip, and then there is a round chip. And the round chip I actually found to scatter EMFs. I had a whole EMF crew come out, redo the lighting in my house, mitigate the EMF from the electricity, put the silver tent up. So I'm down the EMF pathway with you as well. Multiple people asked for recommendations for EMF blockers, phones, homes, and personal use. So great. I will put the one that I use in my home, the one that I use on my phone, and the one that you can use for personal use. Although the personal use ones, to be completely honest with you guys, I have every pendant under the sun that's promised to block EMF. I have not found one yet where I have been able to recreate the scatter frequency from that device. I have in the home and I have on the phone. But I have not been able to find a personal device. If you have one you want me to check out, and you know that I am an incessant tester. My half of my house is biohacking chemistry lab. I've got nanoparticulate meters for air quality. I've got ORP meters to look at what's going on with my hydrogen water. And I have sensitive EMF equipment that I use to check the electromagnetic frequency from different devices. And I'll tell you the ones that I find that work and that don't, whether I have a relationship with them or not. So diet, supplements, and weight loss. You guys put these in categories. This is kind of cool. So Roger Soroka, he asked, who should take NMN, D3, and K2, and what are the proper doses? I believe that every single person on the planet should be taking 5,000 IUs, international units, of D3, with at least 80 micrograms of K2 per day. So vitamin D3, which is cholecalciferol. There's two types of vitamin D, D2, ergocalciferol, and D3, cholecalciferol. That's the one that we actually make naturally from sunlight and cholesterol. And the population of the world, roughly 50% of the population is deficient. 85% of the African-American population is deficient. So if you are darker complected, like you're Latino, African-American, you're darker complected, there is a much greater chance that you are clinically deficient in that nutrient. So 5,000 IUs of vitamin D3 with K2. NMN, I'm a big fan of, nicotinamide mononucleotide. Comes in a couple of different forms, tablet and capsule. The dosage should be on the back of the label. The only reason why I'm not recommending a dosage is some are sustained release and some are immediate release. I'm a bigger fan of supporting our own natural production of NAD than I am of infusing NAD, other than when you're sick or feeling run down or you're particularly jet lagged. NAD IVs can be great. Do not believe the hype that you can take NAD orally. If you actually look at the molecule of NAD, nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide, there's a little plus at the end of that. That plus is a positive charge, which is nullified as soon as you swallow it. So there is no such thing as oral NAD. There are NAD precursors, and there are three of them: NMN, nicotinamide mononucleotide, nicotinic acid, and nicotinamide riboside. Those are the only ways to raise your NAD levels. Sarb Rai, thoughts on a plant-based diet? I always get in trouble with this one. I am not a fan of plant-based diets. And I am not a fan of pure vegan or vegetarian diets. I think that the science is in the effects that it has, especially during pregnancy. When you look at the quality of a diet, because something is not meat does not make it healthy. When you look at vegan and vegetarian diets, think of the things that you can have: wheat, barley, hops, rye, grains. You can have beer. You can have white bread, white flour. You can have pasta. And a lot of those things are terrible for you. A lot of the oats that are non-organic that are also terrible for you. Plus, the highest concentration of glyphosate is found in our grain supply: corn, wheat, soy. Those are the main offenders, the grains, for high levels of glyphosate. By the way, I just did an incredible blood test. I had a very bad personal journey, which is something that I have not yet shared, but I am going to share walking out of this with you guys. I trusted a physician, a world-renowned PhD, MD in the Middle East, who convinced me to begin to use, you haven't seen this on my social media because I was testing it first, convinced me to use a machine to restructure my water. And it not only restructured the water, but it increased the pH. And initially, when I started drinking this water, I felt amazing. And I mean, really amazing. My workouts improved. I got some of the top athletes in the world on this, started doing some research on the machine, found out it was a glorified welding machine. And I was like, well, if it's not made for human use and to produce water for human consumption, I wonder what kind of contaminants were in there. I drank 2 liters of this water a day, every day for 5 months. I started having strange symptoms, which for me is very rare, like getting up from a laying down position to sitting up very fast, a little bit of light dizziness. So immediately I knew this was likely metal toxicity. I sent the water to a lab. It had 3,800 times the safe allowable of lead. Now, if you know anything about me, I have carbon filtration. I have 4-stage water, RO, reverse osmosis filtration in my unit. Then I have step down filters at my sinks, and I have a step down filter, a 0.3 micron step down filter to go into my steam room. I am a psycho about water and about air quality. I've got UVA, UVB filtration. I've got carbon and HEPA filtration. There's surgically clean air in my house. Needless to say, I was furious. I actually do have lead poisoning as I sit here and speak right now. I'm not concerned about it because I know exactly what to do to get rid of it. So I'm going to document that for you guys. I'm going to show you my testing. I'm going to show you the water that it came from. But as diligent as I am, I'm really let down in myself that I didn't do the testing first. I just assumed because of the qualifications of this person that he could be trusted. And it turns out that he couldn't. But again, I'm going to walk you through that. So I'm not a fan of plant-based diets. I think that plants lack a lot of the essential B vitamins, especially B12. They usually lack the protein density. They also usually lack the omega-3 fatty acids that we need. You can still be healthy on a plant-based diet. I'm not saying that that there are not people that are successful at plant-based dieting. You need to have things like shelled hemp seeds. In my opinion, you also need to critically supplement with methylated multivitamins to make sure that you're filling in the nutrients that you might be deficient in. But meat, fish, these are extraordinarily nutrient dense foods. Eggs, these are very dense foods. The FDA just finally came out and said eggs are healthy. And they finally came out and said, nope, the yolks in eggs don't raise your cholesterol. So if you eat the whole egg together, you're actually getting the right balance of fats and proteins and cholesterol. And so I think the source of your meats is important. You know, I get my meats from Parker Pastures. And Parker Pastures is grass-fed, grass-finished on fields that are not sprayed with toxic chemicals. They don't vaccinate their cows. They don't give them hormones. They don't give them antibiotics. They actually have a what do you call it? A quarantine process that they use for cattle that get sick. They never get slaughtered. They go live a happy life in a pasture far, far away from the other cattle. So grass-fed beef, true free-range pasture-raised eggs, which is really hard to find. You know, the Vitality brand was just busted for high levels of linoleic acid in their yolks because they let the chickens out for the pictures and then they put them back in and feed them grains and soy. And so they built up high amounts of linoleic acid in their yolks. I think meat, eggs, fish, chicken, avocados, coconut oil, nuts, avocados, these are such nutrient dense foods. We talked about this earlier when we talked about GLP-1s, remember, like Ozempic and Wegovy. Remember, GLP-1, glucose-like polypeptide, is actually a hormone that we release in our gut. And we release this hormone in response to satiation. So this means the more nutrient dense your foods, the higher your GLP-1. Now, there's an interesting technology that I'm way down the rabbit hole of investigating. It's actually a sound technology, believe it or not. It's a way of taking nutrient dense foods like my Ultimate Human bars, which by the way are all whole foods. It's a way of taking nutrient dense foods and actually shocking them with sound waves to create a preservative-like quality in the food. So you don't have to put binders, fillers, and preservatives. And I'm way down the road on investigating this because it could be the next millennia technology using sound to take whole foods and extend their shelf life using sound as a preservative. You might know that a lot of juices, like cold pressed juices that are fully organic, that don't have preservatives in them, they won't have more than a 3-day shelf life. So how is an organic juice able to be put on the shelf and have a 30 or 60 or 90-day shelf life? What they use there is pressure. They actually take these bottles of juice and they submit them to extreme pressure, the same depth as going 18 1,000 feet under the surface of the ocean. What this does is it crushes the pathogens. It lyses the wall of bacteria and crushes pathogenic contents and actually creates a preservative. That's the kind of technology that I am a huge fan of. Leaving things in their natural state, cold processing them, expeller pressing them, not exposing them to chemicals, not exposing them to unnatural levels of heat. You know, you might incur 98 or 100 or 102 or even 104 degrees on the surface of the earth. There's no place that you can go and naturally encounter 400 degrees and still not think that you're denaturing contents. Brienne Chedek said, how do I get enough protein in my precision if my precision test says to avoid most meats? Oh gosh, we're back to the precision test. As you know, I actually resigned from 10X Health over that precision test because I am having a difficult time linking some of the gene mutations directly to the recommendations. That being said, a great way to get enough protein if you are avoiding meats, and if you're going to avoid meats, I would not avoid fish. But if you're going to avoid meats and other protein sources, you can take up to 3 servings of perfect aminos per day. Remember, we eat protein to get to the amino acid content. We're not necessarily we are eating protein for calorie intake as well, but we eat protein so our body can get the amino acids. The second that a single amino acid, any one of the 8 essential amino acids, gets deficient, so you go from having all 8 to having 7, the rest of those amino acids or the rest of that protein is turned into either fat or sugar, right? So I would increase your intake of perfect aminos. Then Shannon Davis, why is my HRV so low? It's in the 20s. How can I improve it? Also, is my infrared sauna effective compared to dry saunas? 2 great questions, Shannon. So HRV, for those of you that don't know, is heart rate variability. Most people would think if your heart rate is 60 beats per minute, that means that your heart beat once every second, right? So it beat every second for 60 seconds so that you got 60 beats in a minute. That's actually not true. What might happen is your heart might beat every second and a half and then beat twice in a second and then beat 3 times and then skip a beat. So this variation is called heart rate variability. It is a measure of your heart's ability to adjust very quickly to different strains. So for example, let's say you're in a deep sleep and you're on your back and you're deep sleeping at night, your heart rate's very low, and you push yourself up and you turn over and you roll over to your stomach. Okay. How fast does your heart rate respond? Does it go, meaning does it increase its heart rate and then immediately adjust back down, which would be a great heart rate variability, which means that your heart rate variability would climb. So heart rate variability is different from heart rate. Heart rate is how many times does your heart beat in a minute. Heart rate variability is what is the distance between those beats. And variation is actually a sign of conditioning. Here's 3 things about heart rate variability that should answer your question, Shannon. Number 1, compare your HRV to your own baseline. I assume if you're measuring your HRV, you either have a Whoop, you have an Oura, or you have an 8 sleep, one of those. And so if you're measuring your heart rate variability, after 30 days, you'll get a baseline. Compare yourself to your own HRV. Don't compare it to other people or young athletes. You can be perfectly healthy with lower heart rate variabilities, but there are ways to improve it. The best way to improve it is to improve your quality of sleep. And by that, I mean not the duration of sleep, your quality of sleep. We're going to talk about this on February 19th in our morning routine, but I'll tell it to you guys right now. The best way that you can adjust your sleep scores and positively affect your HRV is to select consistent bedtime and waking times. So I would start trying to go to bed, set an alarm 30 minutes before you're supposed to be in bed to let yourself know, I've got to be in bed at 10 or 10:30 or 11. Pick a consistent time to go to bed. Do that every day for a week and stick to that bedtime. The second thing I would do is I would stop eating 2 hours before you go to bed. If you go to bed at 10 p.m., do not put anything in your mouth after 8 p.m. other than fluids. And preferably no fluids with carbohydrates or sugars, no flavored fluids, preferably just water or mineral salt. The third thing that you can do for heart rate variability is breath work and exercise. Exercise actually improves not only your resting pulse rate, but it improves your heart rate variability over time as you condition your heart to respond to different stressors. Dorota Maslowski or Maslowska. Dorota Maslowska. Which red light panel brand do you trust for results? Are there budget-friendly options? Yes, there is one that I am working on having manufactured for the ultimate human. It's called a LumaPod or LumaPod Pro. Right now, they are constructing the lights. I expect to have this on the market in the next 30 days. There are very expensive brands that I like LumaPod Pro, like Theralight 360. But the panels that we're going to manufacture will be a significant value over what else is in the market. I think similar panels are about 18,000. The one I'll manufacture will be about 3,600. You can use red light masks and other things for superficial light because visible light is very superficial. It's great for your skin, but it's the infrared and near infrared lights that are the best. Oh, by the way, to answer your question about saunas, yes, your infrared sauna is also effective. The only reason why I prefer dry sauna is that's where we have literally centuries of research. We don't have centuries of research on infrared, but infrared is a great way to heat the body up and also cause detoxification. As the wavelengths of light increase from near infrared to into the infrared spectrum, as the nanometer wavelength of light climbs, you start to actually create heat. This is why an infrared bed, it doesn't heat you up, but an infrared sauna does. It's the wavelength of light exciting what's called a water chromophore, creating friction and raising your temperature. So either of those saunas is fine. If you already have an infrared, don't go out and get a dry sauna. If you have a dry sauna, you're just fine. The Finnish and the Russians, they've been using these things for centuries and obviously very safe. There's some really interesting research on what's called multi-step oxygen therapy, which is breathing in a dry sauna or even using a nasal cannulus with oxygen in a dry sauna. As you might know, I did this with my parents. Both of my parents are deconditioned. My father's handicapped from a boating accident. My mother had bilateral knee replacements, so they're not getting around much. I put them regularly into a dry sauna, and I run an oxygen nasal cannulus into that sauna and allow them to breathe 93 to 95% O2 for about 15 or 20 minutes while their heart rate is increased. It's a great way to simulate exercise. Sheila Kyle, or Sheila Kyle. Can you provide details on the autism protocol you mentioned? Red light therapy, methylene blue, and stem cell therapy. Yes. So remember that autism is a neuroinflammatory condition, and the spectrum is largely determined by the level of inflammation. So, what are some things that are common to most all autism clients, patients, or people, especially younger adults? One thing that's common to them is high levels of NO2, nitric oxide, which we think is a vasodilator, which it is, but it also is a caustic gas that competes for oxygen in the mitochondria. It competes at a place called cytochrome C oxidase. So lowering nitric oxide is a good thing for people with autism. One of the things that methylene blue does is it lowers the nitric oxide level. One thing that red light does is it actually kicks nitric oxide out of the cell, out of the mitochondria, and forces oxygen to dock. The other two things that I would mention are the stem cell therapy is specifically called amniotic stem cell therapy. You can Google amniotic stem cell therapy for autism. The other four things that are an absolute must in anyone with autism is mold, mycotoxin, viral, and pathogen testing, metals especially. So mold, mycotoxin, virus, and metals, because mold, mycotoxins, viruses, and metals are not on your standard blood panel. Your doctor is not going to really know about these. And when you find these extremely high levels, the immune system causes flares. They cause inflammation in the tissues. And since we know they can cause inflammation in the tissues and also in the myelin sheath, this can interrupt the brain transmission or uptake and reuptake of neurotransmitters. So all things that you can do for clients with autism without breaking the bank. Genetics, how did you manage your cholesterol, high LDL, LPA without statins? I did it two ways. I did something called therapeutic plasma exchange, TPA, where you actually have the plasma taken out of your body and replaced with albumin. I think I did a big post about that. And I took two products. One is a B vitamin, one called niacin. And I took slow release niacin at night. And I took a second product, which is an orange peel extract called Bergamot O. It's actually called Bergamot Mega O. So Bergamot Mega O and niacin at night. Dr. Gundry and I, by the way, did a podcast on this in London several months ago. You can actually Google the podcast with Dr. Gundry and we talk about it on there. But Bergamot Mega O and the slow release niacin are really inexpensive treatments. The TPE, the therapeutic plasma exchange, is an expensive treatment. You could also do something called EbO2 ozone, extracorporeal blood ozone. I actually posted a video on this the other day. I'm doing it for metal toxicity, but you can also do that for high LP little a. Okay, so is it time to go to live questions, or do I have? Oh no, it's only 2:38. I still got some time. Let me see if we can get through a couple more.
There's 3 pages. So.
Oh, there's 3 pages. Okay. How did you manage? Elena Matzo said, what are the lesser known genetic mutations affecting nutrient absorption and metabolism? How do you prioritize them? So if you'd like, I'll actually write, the top 5 that I tested before. Very shortly, I'll be testing 12. The book that Sage and I wrote, which is coming out shortly, is on the top 5 gene mutations, but I've added additional genetic mutations like the conversion of coenzyme Q10 into ubiquinol, the conversion of vitamin D3, cholecalciferol into the active form, and other things that we convert, things like caffeine. And I believe that these will be very important for people to know because, number one, you can supplement for them or you can diet your way around them. So lesser known genetic mutations affecting nutrient absorption and metabolism: MTHFR, MTR, MTRR, AHCY, which is very rare, and then the big one, COMT, catechol O methyltransferase. Those would be the big 5, I think, for methylation. Connor Drake, how do I get actionable feedback from my genetic results and lab work? So, if you're asking how do I get actionable feedback, meaning how do you get actionable feedback from your doctor or from your clinic? The way that you would do that, I think I'm reading your question correctly. The way that you would do that is ask for your levels to be put into the functional ranges, not just into the LabCorp ranges. Remember, LabCorp, Quest, all of these labs work on the same thing, and that is they work on a population basis. So in other words, if you're a 36-year-old male or a 44-year-old female, they're going to put you in a population of thousands of other 44-year-old females or 36-year-old males, and you're going to be high or low or good or bad based on that population. Well, as the population gets sicker, very often the averages go down. It's like grading things on a curve. If everybody in the class got a C, the highest C becomes an A. And so if everybody's testosterone is dropping or their blood nutrients like DHEA and SHBG and vitamin D3 are dropping, then the population average starts to fall. So I would ask for functional ranges. And then tips for coping with tinnitus. This is a huge one. I will share with you a very personal story. This is another one that I will document for you guys. One of the world's most famous DJs, who's a very close friend of mine, called me about, was it 2 months maybe ago? About 2 months ago. It was a very difficult call. He was calling me from Las Vegas essentially to say goodbye, thank me for what I'd done from him, but he was seriously contemplating taking his own life. He'd had tinnitus for unrelenting for 2 months. They couldn't find any damage to his ear, to his cochlea. They couldn't find any damage to the tympanic membrane. The sound was getting worse, and it was steady, and it was unrelenting. And if you've ever suffered from tinnitus, or you know somebody who's suffering from tinnitus, it's probably only second or third to complex regional pain syndrome, or other types of pain-related symptomology in terms of how crushing it can be on your will to live. So I was able to convince him to come down and move in with me for 2 weeks. What I did was I put him on Vinia resveratrol. By the way, this was doctor supervised. I put him on Vinia resveratrol, daily liquid turmeric and curcumin for inflammation, regular 3 times a week hyperbaric oxygen therapy, which worked almost immediately, and then it would subside after a while, and then it would work and it would subside. I had his atlas and axis adjusted by a qualified chiropractor. Very often, the first 2 bones under the skull, you have the occiput, the skull sitting on the top of the spine. These 2 first vertebrae, C1, C2, are called the atlas and the axis. There's a tremendous amount of mobility here. The condyles have a lot of surface area for the skull to move around, forward, back, rotary motion. These are common places for nerve impingements, and a qualified chiropractor, I would find someone that only adjusts those 2 bones. There are chiropractors whose entire career is centered around manipulating these 2 bones. They do them very gently. He got almost immediate relief from that. He instantly became hungry, which was a sign that we had deactivated his sympathetic nervous system, fight or flight, and activated his parasympathetic nervous system, the rest and digest. We also did something called a theta chamber, THETA, which is a chamber that restores your vestibular orientation. Lots of places that you can go and get in a theta chamber. And by lowering the inflammation and improving his circulation and dropping the neuroinflammatory condition in his brain, he was able to put that into remission. And I feel for you, because I have never personally had tinnitus. I've had short-term tinnitus after, firing guns on a range or leaving a loud room, but I've never had chronic unrelenting tinnitus. But every physician I talk to, including my own experience, it can really crush the will of somebody to continue. So how can I naturally lower hypertension and get off BP meds? Again, I can't give medical advice because I'm not qualified to. I'm not a physician, and I'm not licensed to practice medicine. However, if you have elevated blood pressure and you can't find anything wrong with your heart, normal EKG, normal EEG, normal heart sounds, normal lung sounds, normal dye contrast study, normal cardiac cath, imaging, x-rays, all of that are normal, then it's time to look outside the heart. Why might the heart's pressure be so high? Well, vasoconstriction is a big one, and that happens when you have high homocysteine. There is a study published in the, I want to say it is the Wiley, W-I-L-E-Y, Journal of Headaches. And it looked at, Wiley Cardiovascular Journal, and it looked at, reasons why people are having hypertensive episodes when they can't get a diagnosis of anomalies in the heart. A lot of it had to do with nutrient deficiencies, mainly minerals. So that's why I really recommend people drink mineral salts like Baja Gold and stay hydrated. But it also had to do with hyperhomocystinemia, elevated levels of homocysteine. One of the best things I've found to lower homocysteine is TMG, trimethylglycine, 500 milligrams a day in a gel capsule. And then just make sure your doctor's aware of it. Start monitoring your blood pressure on a regular basis. And as your vascular system relaxes, your blood pressure may return to normal. It may even get hyposystolic, might get low, because when it's elevated, blood pressure meds will make it normal. When it's normal, blood pressure meds will actually make it very low. I love these. Could we get into more detail on peptides and their main functions? Sure. Why don't we talk about a couple of big peptides that you might have heard of? And then when we open it up for questions, if you have specific peptides you'd like me to talk about, I'm happy to. So peptides are amino acid sequences. Like, if growth hormone is a 90 chain amino acid, a growth hormone peptide will be about a 44 chain amino acid. And so what happens when you put these amino acids into the body is they mimic a signal from one organ to another, or they cause an organ to secrete a compound that it naturally does anyway. There are peptides, for example, like HCG, that will cause a man's testicles to release more testosterone. There are peptides that work in men and women, anti-sarcopenic peptides, that will cause your pituitary to secrete more youthful levels of growth hormone. I'm a much bigger fan of being high on our own supply, right? No matter what anyone tells you, there is no better hormone than one the body produces on its own. So before you go on hormone therapy, which I'm also a fan of, we should investigate whether or not your glands or your organ has lost its ability to secrete healthy levels of that hormone. So in other words, in a man, this would be testicular hypofunction or primary hypogonadism, or whether or not the signal has been turned down. I often use the analogy that if you walked into a room and you couldn't hear the music, you wouldn't start messing with the speakers. You would find the tuner and you would turn the tuner up. And why would you do that? Because the speaker does not determine how loud it plays. And this is very true in the human body. The pituitary doesn't decide how much growth hormone it secretes. Testicles don't decide how much testosterone they secrete. The adrenal glands don't decide, how much cortisol they secrete. This is done by a hierarchy, their boss, and very often the signal from the boss to that organ is diminished. So peptides are signaling molecules. Growth hormone peptides, probably the safest and most researched is sermorelin. When you combine it with another one called tesamorelin, you get a very powerful release of growth hormone. I'm a fan of both of those in combination. You can use peptides like Selank, which are anti-anxiolytics, peptides like epitalon, which is a telomere lengthening peptide. It actually has a positive impact on telomerase, which is the peptide that extends your telomeres, which is a sign of longevity. You can take gut peptides. You can take all kinds of different peptides, growth hormone peptides, growth hormone releasing peptides. So maybe we should just get into some questions, specifically on those, but for the most part, they are amino acid sequences that when put into the body, cause an organ to respond by secreting something it would otherwise naturally do. Probably my favorite peptide is BPC 157, Body Protection Compound 157. It is a gastric pentadecapeptide, great for wound healing and great for sealing the gut. All right. I see you there. Oh, you did? Orlando?
Hello.
Hi, Orlando.
Hi, Gary. Do you hear me?
I can hear you just fine.
Okay. Really happy to talk to you.
Great to talk to you.
I'm calling you from Europe, more precisely from Eastern Europe, from Romania.
Right on. So awesome. So you win the distance award, unless somebody calls from China.
Well, I think, yeah. Okay, let's get into it to be mindful of other people's time. Gary, I wanted to ask you the following thing. I have been listening to various talks that you had, and I assume that what you're suggesting is, as a starting point, to have a set of analysis done, right?
Yes.
On whoever it is.
Yes.
And you would then recommend the blood panel, a nutrient deficiency panel, hormonal panel, genetic methylation test, and so on and so forth, depending on how deep the person wants to get into it.
That's very good.
Now, I would like to jump on a plane and fly over to the US and have these things done, and not only done, but also interpreted by someone who really has the expertise on it, because I want to tweak all the things that I can tweak in order to get the, you know, the maximum out of the machine that I'm running on. So my question to you is, does your team provide such a thing, or can you recommend a place where to go and have an extensive work of, you know, of
Yes.
analysis done, and then the subsequent recommendations and, you know, all the biohacking tips which come
Yes.
along with the analysis?
I would recommend for that kind of testing Function Health,
Okay.
or Life Extension. Life Extension is Peter Diamandis and Tony Robbins' company. Function Health is Dr.
Mark Hyman.
Hyman's company. Mhm.
Okay. Okay. So you would say go to these places and they will take care of me. Yeah.
Yes, and they'll also do the interpretation.
Okay. So you with your team, you don't provide this type of.
Not that extensive right now. No, very soon, but not
Very soon.
that expensive just yet. Yes.
Okay.
Very soon.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Hi there.
Hi, how are you?
Amazing. How are you?
Good, thanks. So, thank you, by the way. Just loving all the information. I am a lover of learning, and you are a
good.
great teacher. So thanks.
Thank you. I always said if there was money in teaching, I would have been a teacher. I love to teach.
Well, I'm more of the professional student, so
Okay. We'll make a good combination.
yes, we have been so far. So I'm learning a lot. You just happened to touch on my question, which was very appropriate. So I'm hoping we can go just a little bit deeper, since somebody else
Sure.
had asked it too, in regards to the genes.
Yes.
So if I'm understanding all of this correctly, I had a methylation test done, and all of the genes have a variation except for one. So
Mhm.
my methylation is way, way off. And so I know I'm not processing, for lack of a better word, the amino acids converting to the methionine. The vitamin D receptors are not functioning. The COMP gene is taking the methylated vitamins, which I definitely need. So the AHCY, the BHMT, the CBS, the COMP, the MAO, the MTR, MTRR, the NOS3, the VDR, all of those are off.
Okay.
And I think I'm just taking a massive, massive amount of vitamins that aren't doing anything, because I no matter what hack I try, you know, I'm being diligent about my waking up and getting in the sun and the saunas and the cold plunge, and I'm taking all of these vitamins, and I have such severe fatigue. I mean, it's like, it's not even fatigue. It's like complete lethargy. I feel like I have 100 of those vests on every day, and yet I still am forcing myself to get on the treadmill for 30 minutes, and I'm trying to do something to get the dopamine to fire, and I just can't. And so I'm on a hamster wheel of trying new things, but I'm throwing spaghetti at a wall, and nothing is.
This is a really good one. And everybody should pay close attention to this. So first of all, I believe that everybody should start with methylation testing. So you started in the right place, because nothing else matters if you don't give the human body the raw material it needs to do its job. And so we start there. If you have MTHFR gene mutation, you can't convert folate and folic acid into methylfolate. You supplement with methylfolate, and on through the methylated genes. And I specifically use that term because we want to look at actionable genes and not non-actionable genes, right? So you started in the right place. If you are now supplementing and it's relatively according to your genetic deficiency, and this is still how you feel, now we go to the next phase, which is where we have to look at what kind of pathogenic testing, and I'm using that as a category, not suggesting that you have a pathogen. What sort of pathogenic testing would lead to chronic fatigue or crushing fatigue or exhaustion all the time, or just feeling like you can't get out of first gear? And you're probably also having mood numbness, which means the very, very peaks and very valleys of emotion just kind of disappear. You don't get really, 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 really happy. You don't get really, really, really upset. You're just kind of and you're sort of no matter what happens. Okay, these are classic signs of mold and mycotoxin and chronic viral. So there are 4 categories that I think go massively overlooked in all of modern medicine. They overwhelm the immune system. They do not cause, this is the reason why they go overlooked in modern medicine. They don't cause the kind of symptoms that drive you to the ER or to the urgent care or to your primary care doctor. They are symptoms that you just learn to deal with. You just learn to live with. You develop a personality that pushes you through the day, and you pretend to not be fatigued even though you are, but emotionally and spiritually this wears you down. So these are the 4 big ones: mold and mycotoxins, viruses, low-grade chronic viral, metals, and parasite infections. Believe it or not, about 78 to 90% of the population has one of those 4, right? We all have parasites. Trust me. We all have at some point been exposed to mold or mycotoxins. And what happens is these are particularly love living in the human body. We're dark, we're moist, we're oxygen deprived inside the body. And it's a great place. It's like being behind the washing machine for a mold spore. It's a great place for these things to set up. So one of the things that I would do, and I'll have this testing available soon, but it's not yet. But one of the things that I would do is I would look at those 4 categories. Because
yeah, I mean, I'm positive for at least 4 mycotoxins.
Okay.
I have the Epstein-Barr virus. I have the HSV virus. Certain I have parasites. Mold or the metals have come back positive for a couple, but they didn't seem like they were, major. So that one kind of dropped to the bottom of the
metal testing is tough. My favorite metal test is a post-chelation 8-hour urine. And the reason for that is metals don't hide in the blood and they don't hide in the urine. We test for them in the blood and the urine. They enter and spend time in those tissues or those fluids, but they leave and embed themselves into the tissue. So metals that are in tissue are not found in the blood. There are plenty of clinics that will do chelation with 8-hour urine. And basically what this is a test where you actually go in and you get chelation therapy once. And what the chelation does is it pulls all the metals out of the tissue into the blood, and then they're easily picked up in the blood. That will give you a true result. So 4 things that I would do with or without the testing. Number 1, I would add topical glutathione to your routine. The reason why I would add topical spray glutathione is it is the best way to strengthen your natural detoxification pathway. I would make sure that you are very hydrated throughout the day. One of the things that fatigue does is it diminishes your satiation for thirst, especially for water. So I would be drinking hydrogen water, and I would be drinking hydrogen water in the morning with minerals. The third thing I would do is I would activate your natural detoxification pathways. If you are not having regular bowel movements, I would add magnesium at night so that you have a bowel movement every 24 hours. And I would do dry or infrared sauna as often as possible, 3 to 5 days a week if you can, 20 minutes minimum, because that is our best natural detoxification pathway, especially now that you know that you have mold and mycotoxins. The 5th thing that I would add is one of 3 binders. I would add activated charcoal. I would add zeolite, not all three of these, one of these three. Or I would get a product called Toxi Prevent, and I would get their lower GI formula, and I would take one of those capsules 30 minutes prior to every meal. It's a little bit of a task, but what these do is they absorb inflammatory compounds in the gut and will help, because whatever is in you, the Epstein-Barr virus, which will hide in the dorsal root ganglion and make a comeback, the mold mycotoxin, which basically creates a lot of fatigue. In children, this causes recurrent strep infections. If you have a child, listen up, moms and dads, if you have a child that gets recurrent over and over and over strep throat injections, they have mold poisoning. Full stop. Mold and bacteria have been vicious enemies for centuries, for millennia. They hate each other. I mean, think of penicillin and what it does to a bacteria, right? They do not like each other. And so chronic mold will actually cause recurrent strep infections, because as the mold flares, the strep virus flares in response to it, right? So I'm not saying that's going on in you. I'm just telling the moms and dads, if you got one of those kids that's constantly getting sore throats, constantly getting swollen adenoids, do not let them take their tonsils out just yet. Make sure that you test them for mold. So now that you know, activate your detox pathways, start on a binder, add glutathione, stay hydrated, and sweat as often as you can.
So I'm doing everything there except for the topical glutathione, which I'll
what
get.
What binder are you taking?
I've been taking the Zeolite for several months, but then several times or a couple times a week, I'll do the activated charcoal as well.
Okay, great. Beautiful.
Now, going back to the previous gentleman's question, with the chelation and stuff, does the Function Health or the Life Extension, do they do either of those where I could be like, here's everything I have, like, can you help me
That is
put
a
these
really
pieces
good question.
together? Because nutritionally, I'm also suffering because the amino acids aren't being absorbed well.
Yes, that's a gut issue. So I did mine at a place called Centner Wellness in Miami. That is a good question. I don't know off the top of my head if Function Health or Life Extension, it'd be easy to find out, does those treatments. Dr. David Minkoff also does those. Because I want to move on to the next question, I will task my team with reminding me, and I will post in the show notes places that do this, or I will give you a reference to find one that does.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
You're so welcome.
All right.
That's a great question, by the way. Really good question. So many people are just accepting what's happening to her and don't know how to, I mean, we ought to be fighting, like constantly searching to find out what is going wrong, because when you find it and get rid of it, your life goes back to normal. Okay, who's on deck next? Hey man, is it Peter?
Yep. How's it going, Gary?
Hey, Peter, how are you, buddy?
Not too bad. So the previous question kind of was exactly what I was going to ask, but I'll try to, ask from a different perspective, maybe. What I do every day is I do my hydrogen water, do my Baja Gold sea salt, my perfect aminos. I do the optimize and the D3 and K2. And I've been dealing with like a fatigue for, a number of years, but the last 6 months or so, and especially the last month, it's just been like crushing fatigue. All tests come back normal, and the doctors just slap on the label, oh, you have CFS.
No.
Good
There's
luck.
no such thing as chronic fatigue. So it's just a label, right?
Yeah.
There are things that cause you to be chronically fatigued, but there is no syndrome of chronic fatigue. And the reason why I say that is we just have to keep searching. So have you done mold, mycotoxin, metals, and
no, and that's why I'm glad that she asked. And I'm gonna, once the replay is up, I'm gonna go through it again and write down everything, make sure that that I do all the testing and adding anything that you've said. But as for mold and heavy metals and those tests, no, they've just done the normal blood work. My testosterone is in range, but at like the very, very bottom. And the doctor, of course, said, "Oh no, you're fine. You're in normal
Oh
range."
yeah, that's just classic. So
Yeah.
yeah, there's no question. See, what happens so often in human beings, and I super can't stress this enough. It's why when I was talking about the ultimate human VIPs, I'm like, how can I add value? How can I add value? And I'm like, you know what? I'm doing all this stuff behind the scenes. Why don't I just get people's permission to see exactly what I'm doing with a client in conjunction with a functional medicine doctor, to walk people out of some of these situations. So I'm finding that this is really going to be more impactful, maybe even than I thought. I'm going to start, pay attention, because I'm going to start consolidating, where can you get the testing? Like, which ones can you order in the mail? Like there's one called mymycotest.com. Or my mycotoxin test. It's either my mycotest or my mycotoxintest.com. And they send, these kits to the house. So you're usually really inexpensive. And I'm going to help you guys find inexpensive supplementation and therapeutic regimens that you can do, the majority of which at home, to address some of these issues, because nobody is talking about it. And the problem is that when you go to the doctor and you get your blood work done, yeah, everything's in range. Your red blood cell count's in range. I'm gonna promise you, if you look at your red blood cells and your hemoglobin, your red blood cells are in the lowest 15% of the range. You'll see that they go from 380 to 560. You're going to be a less than 415. Then you go to your hemoglobin. You're going to see that your hemoglobin levels are low, meaning the amount of fluid inside the red blood cell is low. And what does that mean? That means that you're not binding oxygen. If you're not binding oxygen, you're exhausted, because everything that you perceive about energy is nothing more than oxygen in your blood. So if I can raise the contents of oxygen in your blood, I can raise your energy level. The question is, what's keeping it low? And those are the 4 big ones. And I'm going to isolate each one and talk about how can we walk ourselves out of this. The best way, or just the ways that without even knowing, they're very safe, are the ways that I told you before. Drinking hydrogen water, and I'll be releasing with my son something called H2 Tabs. You can go to drinkh2tabs.com, and this is an elemental magnesium tablet that'll cost you less than 80 cents, about 80 or 90 cents a day. You drop it in water, it makes very high part per million hydrogen. All of these pathogenic bacteria, viruses, metals hate hydrogen because it improves circulation and reduces inflammation. And I'm trying to find ways to do it for less money than buying a $250 water bottle, which is also a solution. So I would be drinking hydrogen water. I would stay super hydrated. I would absolutely be taking methylated multivitamins and minerals. I would be sweating as often as possible. I would add glutathione. My preference is the topical, but you could also use a liposomal glutathione. And then once you identify it, I can be more specific about options for EbO2, 10-pass ozone, transdermal ozone, some of the other modalities that you can do to get rid of it. Okay.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Gary.
You're welcome. So many people with that question, man. There he is. How are you, Mike? My favorite radio host, dude. Good to see you, brother.
Hey, great to see you as well. I appreciate it, Gary. So I'm going to deviate from the questions we've had. And last week I had 2 tears in my retina. The ophthalmologist and the retinal doctor that did the laser to make sure everything is attached has said there's nothing I can do. I refuse to accept that.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering, what can I do as far as supplements, subcutaneous peptides or peptides at all, herbs, mushrooms, whatever. And I know you did in New York, you did the holistic dentist. I found, but these are almost like the unicorns, that there's holistic optometrists. So I'm going to start looking in that, but is there any guidance you have?
Yeah, they're definitely the 4 things that I would be doing if I have the same condition. One is for preservation. The second 3 are going to be for healing. One is definitely red light therapy. The reason for this is red light therapy will help with microvascular circulation, which is the majority of the circulation to your rods, cones, retina, macula, to the back of the eye. There's a very, very small, some of the smallest capillaries in the human body, other than what innervate your lungs.
Okay.
Second, I would take a growth hormone peptide. I would talk to your doctor about a specific combination of something called sermorelin
Mhm.
and tesamorelin, T-E-S-A, tesamorelin. Those are a very powerful growth hormone peptide. That is for healing. I would also take very high doses of BPC 157, body protection compound 157. That means take the normal dose and triple it in the morning and triple it again in the evening. Reason for this is what you want to try to do is get as many platelets to that area of the body as possible, because platelets are carrying growth factors, right? Platelet itself
Okay.
is useless, but what's in the platelet are growth factors. And that is where all the magic in the human body is. Platelets are recruited to sites of inflammation. The problem with retinal tears and micro tears and microvascular injury is it's not loud enough. It's not enough of an injury to really call the platelets. So what we want to
Okay.
do is we want to go from whispering to talking to shouting to screaming into the blood so that platelets are attracted to that location and are soaking that area in growth factors. This is essentially the whole theory behind platelet-rich plasma, right? PRP injections, where you draw your own blood, you spin it down, and you inject it into your rotator cuff or your shoulder or your knee or your hip or something like that. You're essentially concentrating all of the healing power of the human body into one location. And so you can do that with BPC 157 without sticking yourself in the eye with a needle. I would also, I don't know what your doctor told you, so I don't want to do anything that they didn't tell you. But natural light is what gives the full spectrum of photosensitivity to your eyes. When I say the full spectrum, we can see the red, orange, yellow, blue, green, indigo, violet. We cannot see the lower and the higher wavelengths of light, but these higher and lower wavelengths of light we are very photosensitive to. And one of the things that natural light does, and could be as simple as opening a window you're sitting next to, sliding open a sliding glass door. You don't have to go out and like stare towards the sun. It doesn't have to, but it needs to be unfiltered, meaning not ambient light, but actually natural light that is unfiltered, not through a window or through drapes or through a skylight or something. The more of that you get, the more that those photoreceptors, whether they are attached or not, because they still have blood flow and they will still activate, they're just not communicating with the brain, still working, just detached. That's what a detached retina is. It doesn't mean that tissue is now going to die. It means that it's lost its capacity to communicate with the tissue it's connected to. And so we can still keep it stimulated and alive and active while we are waiting for the healing process to progress. So those would be my non-medical recommendations.
I appreciate the friend to friend over coffee recommendations.
Yes.
With the red light, so the place I go has like platinum LED panels.
Mm-hmm.
Do you like leave your eyes closed? Are you looking up?
Leave your eyes closed, or you can leave your eyes open. Just do not protect your eyes. So when you close your eyes, you will prevent the majority of the red light. You won't prevent infrared or near infrared. They will go right through your eyelids. When you open your eyes, you'll get the full spectrum. So open your eyes and don't stare at the light bulb, but stare at something, that is in between the light bulb. So stare at the metal frame. So your focal point is not the actual beam of light, but your eyes are open, allowing that light to come in. I have never worn eye protection in my red light bed. I've been using red light therapy for years. I don't wear readers. It's funny because I talk about it on podcasts when I'm wearing blue light glasses, and then people shred me. They're like, "There's the guy saying, don't wear readers, wearing readers." And they're not. They're just blue light filtering glasses. And then I would also, during the day, get yourself a pair of really good blue light filtering glasses. Dave Asprey probably makes the best pair that I know of.
Is that the True something or other?
True Dark.
Yeah, they were back ordered. So
the other ones are, because I've been talking about them a lot. And the other ones are Whoop. Whoop actually makes good red light glasses and good red glasses.
Okay. And you said triple the dose on the BPC 157, right?
Triple it in the morning and triple it at night. So if it says 1 capsule, take 3 in the morning and 3 at night.
What about if I'm doing subcutaneous? Is that okay?
So I would do this one. Yeah, you can do it subcutaneous,
Okay.
and increase your dosage. But BPC 157 is one of those peptides that's actually tolerated very well orally. It's actually a
Okay.
gastric peptide, technically a gastric pentadecapeptide, but so it's synthesized from gastric juice. So it actually goes through first pass metabolism very, very well, meaning the digestive tract, which most peptides don't.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I was doing the sub-Q with the TB500, so that was why I was asking.
Yeah, those are both good. TB500 is another great healing peptide. Great one.
Awesome. Gary,
Awesome.
thank
All
you.
right, still got some time. Let's try to get to at least 3 more questions. And then, the more I have these questions, the more excited I am to start documenting this stuff for you guys. Hi there. You're muted.
Hello. How are
Hi
you?
there. I'm amazing. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you so much for your time. I just absolutely adore you and your family, and I'm so sorry to hear about everything going on, with the mold and your friend. We're actually experiencing a lot of mold toxicity ourselves. And not to sound too cute, but I wanted to see your thoughts on what I could do. I have high uric acid levels, and I've been experiencing a lot of foot pain. And I just thought I had like maybe a hairline fracture or something. But it turns out I have gout.
Yes.
Which I thought was mainly like a man thing. And I'm like, I'm trying to be a cute little girl. Cute little girls don't get gout.
Yeah, but those diseases don't tend to discriminate. They like men, women. They just like humans. So,
Yes.
so think about a uric acid crystal and why these uric acid crystals would occur. Mainly, this is because of poor methylation in the kidneys. Sometimes because the kidneys are overpowered. We used to think it was just too much red meat. Red meat can exacerbate it.
That's all they told me was not to eat red meat.
Right. That's it. That's the usual. But this is related to a kidney methylation issue. Just like kidney stones are not calcium, kidney stones are mineral stones. And why do minerals form in the kidney? Because you are mineral deficient. It's the opposite of what most people think is going on in the body. And so just like brittle bones are not caused by low calcium, they're usually caused by low minerals and lack of loading, not a lack of calcium. And so first of all, this is one of the few times I'm actually a fan of prescriptive pharmacology. So there are scripts that you can take because gout can be debilitating, especially if you get the crystals in, your distal joints that have a tendency to go to the big toe, but it kind of goes through a lot of the toes. I know people that have had gout flare-ups that can't even lay a sheet on their toe without like losing their mind. So I don't know if yours is that severe. So
it's not, thankfully, but it doesn't feel good.
Yeah. So 3 things that you can do. First of all, hydrogen water is an absolute must.
We have the Echo installed, the generator under our sink.
Oh, even better. I would drink solely from that if you can.
Okay. Is that okay to drink if you have SIBO?
Yes, I wouldn't drink it as often if you have small intestinal bacterial overgrowth.
Okay.
Have you taken antibiotics for the SIBO?
No, actually, I was asking for my husband because he's never taken
during an
antibiotics
active
from
SIBO
it,
outbreak. During an active
it was pretty. Sorry, go ahead.
Okay, I was going to say during an active SIBO outbreak, you want to limit your hydrogen gas because it'll flare up the other hydrophiles in the gut. So, so just quickly for gout, one is contrast therapy. As warm as you can stand it to as cold as you can stand it, back to as warm as you can stand it to as cold as you can stand it, ending on cold.
Okay.
So from a hot jacuzzi into an ice bath, hot jacuzzi into an ice bath, ending on the ice bath. The second thing that I would do is I would stay very hydrated, in your case, with high amounts of hydrogen water, and minerals are a must for people that create uric acid crystals that have.
Is Shilajit considered a mineral?
Shilajit is a great one. Yes. Shilajit.
Okay, I take that every morning.
Yeah, Shilajit, sea moss, Baja Gold. Those are all great places. Contrast therapy will be your best friend.
And as far as with the mold, because all of my mycotoxins are up in the red. That I
Okay.
did the total toxic burden test, and they're like, "Oh, this is some of the like highest levels we've seen." I'm like, "Oh, that's cool." How long do you think the chelation or chelation, however you pronounce that, process would take? Like, how many sessions would you think would be necessary? Is it a case by case or?
No. So I'm going to tell you the most important thing, and I cannot emphasize this enough. So if anyone is listening and has mold or mycotoxin issues, or it has ever dealt with mold issues, or you are dealing with mold issues, this is the number one thing that determines how long it's going to take you to get rid of mold. And it is the number one non-negotiable to treating clients that have mold issues. And that is, you have to fix the environment that you're in that inoculated you in the first place. There is exactly 0% chance that you will detoxify from mold while you are still in the environment that caused it. Now, I don't know if you're in the house or in that caused it or not. So you need to find out, where do I think I got this? Like, for example, we pinpointed our mold toxicity. My daughter moved out of her place. She lives in Brickell Avenue. She saw it around the vent. We sent a mold specialist in.
Oh,
He
wow.
spotted the mold. Then she had the test. Then our doctors wrote her a letter and we sent it to them and said, "Hey, we are moving out tomorrow," throwing away all of her soft fabrics and getting out. And so number one is clean up the environment that you're in. This is what leads to more chronic, unrelenting, unresolved, untreatable mold conditions than anything else. So you have to fix the environment. If you want, I'll put a link to the air filtration system that I use that also has an ozone setting. So you can
Yes,
kill the mold.
please.
Yeah, I'll send you a link to that. So it filters down to just a few microns, and then you can run an ozone setting, which will kill the mold. So that's the number one thing. Number two, if you find significant mold and it happens to be in your bedroom, it's not in like your laundry room or your kitchen or somewhere where you got it. Sadly, you need to get rid of all the soft fabrics in the main part of the room. Maybe not your closet, but in the main part of the room. Your mattress is a breeding ground if it was inoculated with mold. So are pillowcases and things like that. But you're usually washing those. But the soft thing, not your sheets and towels, but what you're not washing. It's really hard to wash a mattress and get those mold spores out. So that's the number one thing, clean up the environment. And then number two, do the 4 things that I advised that other woman to do. Sweat as often as possible, add glutathione, add a charcoal zeolite binder, or you can take Toxi Prevent, because you have to bind these things when they flare up to carry them out of the gut. And then if you are severe enough, which it sounds like you are, talk to that clinic that found the mold poisoning and see what ozone treatments they offer, and that will accelerate your
the ozone treatments I've done before literally made. I also have like reoccurring pilonidal cysts, not to sound cute again, but the ozone treatments made my pilonidal cysts go away. It was incredible.
Crazy, right? I mean, it's just ozone gas.
Yeah.
I'm such a huge fan of ozone. Thank you for sharing that story.
Thank
Okay,
you.
so yeah, you're very welcome. All right, so we can we do one more? Yeah, can we get time? Can we do one more? One last couple, but we'll try to keep it short. Dude, I love it. You got the swag gear on. I'm only answering your question. Whoever's sitting next to you, no, I'm not answering.
I'm out.
She's got a university.
You're out.
She's got a University of Pittsburgh on. Nobody
cares about the University of Pittsburgh. No, it's great.
Gary, thank you so much. Thank you for everything, taking our call, everything. We're going to see you at Ken's event in a couple days. Super excited.
That's awesome.
Yeah, very excited. Question for you: if you were suffering from diverticulitis, what are some of the things you do? I'm guessing BPC 157.
Yeah. Obviously, I would do it using BPC 157. I would go strict carnivore for 10 weeks. Very strict carnivore for 10 weeks. And when I mean strict carnivore, grass-fed, grass-finished meats, pasture-raised eggs, free-range chicken, limit chicken, line-caught fish. And the only fruits that I would introduce into the diet at all in very limited quantity would be berries. I would also take an activated charcoal binder, specifically activated charcoal in that case, or Toxi Prevent lower GI formula. It will come in a red box. It's by, I think it's called MediPlus. That's it. The manufacturer is called MediPlus. They're actually overseas. Never seen anything bind toxins for Crohn's, diverticulitis, or irritable bowel syndrome like that product. So what this is going to do is it's going to lower the histamine and the cytokine response, because diverticulitis is inflammation, itis, in the diverticula, folds in the intestinal tract. If you actually looked at the wall, the pipe of the intestinal tract, it's not smooth like PVC. It's kind of a tube, but it has these looks like little balloons, these undulations in them. And this is where contents are meant to temporarily go. And then they're peristaltically returned into the lumen of the gut so that we can increase the surface area to absorb things, right? I mean, if I just had a pipe, I'd have one surface area. If I took that pipe and created a bunch of ridges, I could multiply the surface area by hundreds and hundreds of times, which is what the gut does. There are things called cilia that move contents in and out of these diverticula, which is where contents get trapped and cause the inflammatory response. Definitely, I would do I'm not saying you need to be carnivore for the rest of your life, but I would go 10 weeks hardcore carnivore. If you do have dairy products, which is okay, believe it or not, on a carnivore diet, you want to make sure that you're getting raw dairy. I would supplement with something called cowboy colostrum, not Amra colostrum. Colostrum quality is determined by when the colostrum is harvested, whether it is the first colostrum, second colostrum, or third. And the further from the initial colostrum you get, the less dense the nutrients. So like an Amra, which is probably the best known brand, has the cheapest form of colostrum. Cowboy, which is the least known brand, has the best form of colostrum. And I have no interest in either of those brands. I'm not trying to trash one and build another one. I'm just giving you the facts. So colostrum, BPC 157, Toxi-Prevent, or charcoal binder. My preference is Toxi-Prevent. And 10 weeks of carnivore, and it will be in your rearview mirror.
Perfect.
We'll be on this
Anything
call
with
2 months from now, and you'll be saying, I don't have it anymore.
Awesome. Anything with increasing the BPC 157 dosage, or just the recommended?
You could triple that twice a day,
Triple
just
as well.
like I did for the other gentleman.
Gary, thank you so much. We'll see you in a couple
You
days.
guys
So
are
excited.
amazing. Let's get her something decent to wear. You know, she can't be seen in public in a Pittsburgh University shirt. Okay. Hi, guys. All right. One last question. Let's fire it up. Oh, we are done with questions. Okay. Thank you guys then for joining me today. I see all your comments. I'm going to truly do my best to answer them. I spent several hours this week with my team, with Rachel, answering a lot of these questions. Can you close that for me? Right here. Yeah, that's okay. So I know we still have 24 hands raised, but I'm going to try to get to another, 5 questions or so before we wrap up. If I don't get to your question, don't worry. I'm going to make a post after this. I'm going to take your questions and try to answer those. I just want to be respectful of people's time. But look for some of these little, I don't know if you want to call them docu-series or educational series. I'm going to just start doing for you guys. Please help me build this community, guys. It's expensive to travel and get these guests on the podcast, and to produce this content. And to the extent that you can invite friends or family to become Ultimate Human VIPs, to the extent that you can continue to give me feedback on how I can be more of service to you. I'm getting lots of positive feedback from you guys on just the small shout outs that I give you guys and some of the behind the scenes. So I'll continue to do that. I have a vision of growing this community to hundreds and hundreds of thousands of like-minded individuals. What's really impressive to me, and what I get so much peace and satisfaction from, is those of you that have been VIPs for longer than others are now actually starting to answer questions for other people. And this is the only way that I can multiply myself. I plan to pour myself into you guys so that you can help pour yourselves into other people. And if I can get 100,000 people to give 5 minutes of their day to a community, I've done my job, really building a community of like-minded people that can really change the world. The whole reason why I'm working with the MAHA committee is because I think we can really affect public policy, and it's just a way to multiply what we're doing. And this is my way of doing that. So if you have tips for things that I can do to be better in service to you, I want to know them. One of them is this docu-series that I'm going to do just for you guys, whatever the 2,000 or 3,000 of you guys that there is. Okay, so try to keep your questions short. We'll do we'll do a couple of questions here right at the end. It says we'll probably get to another 5 questions before we wrap up. Let's take a few more questions. Hey, Todd. You're still muted.
Yeah, there we go.
There we go.
Can you hear me? All right.
I can.
Hey, Gary, thanks for taking the time. Hey, just a couple of quick product related questions, things that you featured before on your podcast. One was the Alkamind product line.
Huge.
Yeah. You know, I got to say, hey, as far as the what is it, the PPIs, I can say just anything related to that by using the product. I'm using the salted caramel thing in my coffee. And I'll tell you, I was a black coffee drinker up to this point, and this stuff is just flat out addictive.
It is so addictive, and it's not super cheap either. It's like, but it is really addictive, and it drops the acid, and he puts MCTs and brain boosting enzymes in there.
Yeah. Well, what I wanted to just try and just get some feedback is this just going to I've transitioned over to kind of a carnivore / keto, where I've really cut down. I'm using the Levels constant glucose monitor right now just to really try and dial in and see what things are doing. So I've been into that for about a month now, but I'm obviously eating all these fats associated with the keto and carnivore diet. My levels are way up, not my glucose levels, but my cholesterol. But within my first lab result back from Levels, I got an ApoB that's way out of range. I'm at like 139. Okay. And I'm just wondering, with this being coconut oil and MCT oil, I would think that, it's a medium chain triglyceride. It's going to elevate my cholesterol no matter what.
Yeah. I mean, so 3 things. Number 1, I make sure that your labs are fully fasted when you do them. I would, that's a big thing. I would also do the triglyceride to cholesterol ratio, because it's the high triglyceride, high cholesterol that's bad. The low triglyceride, high cholesterol is the marker for longevity. And I did an entire podcast with the soon to be head of Health and Human Services, Dr. Aseem Malhotra, right here. He is about to be nominated to the Health and Human Services as their director. He is actually going to change the guidelines for LDL cholesterol, because we are overdiagnosing people with cardiovascular risk based on elevated LDL. Those are not my words. Those are his words. So elevated LDL cholesterol is not a risk factor for cardiovascular disease. It is a marker for how much cholesterol is in your blood, but not the size of the cholesterol. As your triglycerides go down, the size of the cholesterol molecule goes up, which makes it less dangerous and healthier. As triglycerides go up, the size of the cholesterol molecule goes down, which makes it more dangerous and more likely to cause cardiovascular disease. So I wouldn't worry about this just yet, especially if you're only a few weeks or months into this. I would allow your body to switch into becoming more of a beta hydroxybutyrate burner, meaning more of a ketogenic burner. You can't cheat on that diet, but you're not cheating by using Alkamind. In fact, I put all of the clients that I put on keto reset diets, I have them use that in their coffee, heavy cream, that and monk fruit at it if they have to have a sweetener. So I think you're absolutely on the right track.
Okay, just know, I can't really sit there and see as a cardiovascular history of having this be a risk factor. My cardiologist didn't seem to be too worried about it, but I'm going to have him check my the cell sizes, just to make sure.
LDL ratio. Yep.
Yeah. My triglycerides are tanking now. So
I would bet that your triglycerides are less than 75.
I'm at 71 right now on my last lab with total cholesterol being over 300 though.
Yeah. Great.
Yeah.
You're healthy.
So
you're going to live a very long time.
Okay. All right. Thanks, man.
Tell your wife to get used to you, man. Okay, guys, I'm sorry we went a little over today. I mean, that's all the time my team is telling me we have. I've got to actually go film some more content for you guys. I'm trying to shoot before I get on the plane to go to Dubai. So, guys, thank you so much for tuning in today. Please check the VIP community for more information. So you don't forget to sign up for the live morning routine challenge. It's always going to be free. You guys get special hour with some guests. I have some insanely huge guests coming to that 3-day event. Still working on nailing the final guest, but I think he'll be back from overseas from a movie shoot that he's on. But I'm going to try to get all 3 of these guests for those 3 days. Some really powerful guests, powerful information.